We are happy to have with us noted prosecutor, federal prosecutor, and writer Andrew McCarthy. You said something that really intrigued me. Islam and the West can coexist, but they cannot mesh.
Right. Well, it's two different civilizations. And the reason for making the point, I think, is the fallacy that if we're not lovey-dovey with each other, we have to be at war with each other, as if we've never had a situation where where you have people who are, or peoples who are innately hostile to each other or hostile to each other over some issue or other, coexist without having to be at war with each other. But the real fact that is important to recognize is that we're a freedom culture, and if we're going to maintain that identity, we have to preserve liberty. The Islamic Middle East, and there are different ways of interpreting Islam, but let's talk about Islam on its home turf, is a Sharia society where liberty is subordinated to order, and a very particular kind of order, the order that is Sharia, which is what Muslims think of as Allah's gift to mankind for the perfect prescription of how a dignified, correct human life is to be lived. So you can't have both of those things. One or the other has to change if you're going to have a mesh. And so that's why I say, can we coexist? Sure. There'll be a lot of times when we have interests that align. We can have sensible relations, particularly if we draw red lines and we make clear that we're going to defend our interest and defend those lines. We don't have to be at each other's throats unless something really bad happens and it becomes necessary. But we shouldn't kid ourselves that Sharia is something that can be woven in together with democracy, and that democracy will remain the same. It just can't. Not our kind of democracy.
We speak after some 20 attacks on U.S. embassies around the world, and particularly in the Middle East. And what is the most life-threatening story that the media misses, in your view?
Well, the Arab Spring itself is a narrative that's counter reality. What we're seeing in the Middle East is not the spontaneous outbreak of democracy. It is the ascendancy of Islamic supremacism, and it's been coming for a long time. The Muslim Brotherhood has been planning for this moment for 90 years. What we miss, I think, and what the media most misses, is that with all the solicitude and indulgence of Muslims in the media, and the worry about their tender sensibilities and the like, there is real repression, real persecution of religious minorities going on throughout the Middle East. I show in the book that most of the countries, that I think it's 36 out of the top 50 or so countries, on the list of, or on various lists of top persecutors of religious minorities, are Muslim countries. In Saudi Arabia, for example, it's illegal to practice any religion other than Islam. If we applied the standards that we apply to ourselves in the West to Islamic countries, we wouldn't give them the time of day. But I think we're so focused in on what will cause the marauding next, what will get them mad next, what will they riot over next, that in bending over backwards to try to be sensitive to their feelings, even to the point of discussing changing our law of free speech to accommodate their repressive Sharia standards, what's being missed is that there are millions of religious minorities being persecuted throughout the Middle East, and that's a story that gets almost no coverage.
Are the only states practicing outright slavery Islamic states?
The only states I know of, and they deny that they practice slavery, at least as a matter of law. However, you know, in Sharia, the classical interpretation of Sharia, slavery is permissible. And we do know that slavery goes on in a number of these countries, even if they've ostensibly made it illegal.